Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Success Talk. I'm your host, Christy Smallwood, and I'm welcoming you today to this episode where we're going to talk about strategies, um, specifically in the difference between having just a plan and having a strategic plan, and what all that looks like. But first, I want to give a shout out, like I usually do, to my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews. And if you are not part of your local Chamber of Commerce, I highly recommend it. It is the best way to get hand in hand with your fellow business people in the community. And if you want to build within your community, that's the place to get started. Our chamber here is committed to building business and community together through those connections. And it's been a great support system. When things are like rough in your business, like 2020, having a solid group of people to go to be able to talk some things out is always great. And you can build that support system through your local chamber. Highly recommend it, like I do with my Chamber of St. Matthews. Okay, a shout out is out of the way. For those who are brand new to this show, Small Business Success Talk, my name is Christy Smallwood. I'm happy to have you here. I typically will talk to you just like you're sitting across from the table from me. So that's what this experience is going to be like today, because today it is just me. I don't have a guest with me. That's why we're going to talk about strategies and plans, the difference between the two things. So, and I do apologize if I'm a little extra breathy. Like, I'm in the Louisville area, which is Ohio Valley, which anything and everything that's in the air just kind of sits there and you walk in it all day. And there's just something. My allergies are up. Like, we're one of those, I think top 10 probably areas of it sucks to be here if you have allergies. So if it's a distraction, I'm very sorry. But it is what it is. So welcome to my world. We talk about business. So this show is about celebrating and spotlighting small business owners, hearing their stories, hearing their challenges, how they've overcome their challenges, learn more about their business and their business model, what got them into it. I love the origin stories. I always love also what inspired them to do it, what continues to inspire them to do it, and what is their version of success. What I've definitely learned over the course of doing this show is that success means something different for everybody, but it's not what, it's not, mainstream media doesn't even mess with this. It's almost as if, well, let's put it under advertising. Advertising will tell you to be successful, you have to do, you have to look, feel, and have the money, right? You have to look perfect, feel great all the time, and have all the money. Like those are your basic scorecards to success. And that's really not what this has been. Small business owners, the entrepreneurs, the getter-doners of the world, these are the people who know the intrinsic value of what they're doing is what is creating the success. Now, don't get me wrong. We all know we need to pay the bills. We all know we need to track the revenue. We need to make sure money's coming in the door. But this is one of the biggest reasons I love to work with small businesses, because what they do, they know it means something. Once you get past a certain trigger point, past a certain line here into big corporate models, the size of the business just starts to become so big, it's hard to find the meaning behind it. I follow those super large global companies that do it well to a point. If you are a returning listener to the show, first of all, thank you very much. But you also know I talk about Disney quite a bit. I have almost a whole bookshelf full of Disney trainings and learnings and things like that about Disney. The business itself, or Walt, or people who, the Imagineers that have worked in it. First of all, I love that they're called Imagineers. But how they have done it, like the stories behind why they do what they do, their employees are called cast members. And there's a reason for that. Is because they have instilled that value system and the cult, like they're on purpose training all the time about the meaning behind things, not just here's the product we have to sell, here's how to sell the product and the benefits. That is not all they get trained on. It is more training about what we mean in the world, how we expect you to show up through that meaning, and beyond beyond infinity. So what I try to do when I work with small businesses is take some of those larger approaches that we know work. It creates magic and everybody loves it. What keeps people coming back to Disney, no matter how much they hate them, they keep going back. So there's a lot of divisiveness, and I'm not even going to go into that. That's not what this episode is about. But there are things that they do that work really well. And it's all thanks to doing it on purpose. Okay. Being strategic on the front end, and then implementing on purpose, because there is a purpose. And that purpose stemmed from the originator, Walt Disney. This is why they do what they do. So, and everybody knows it. Everybody still functions in that business, which is also part of the amazing part, to try to make Walt happy. Walt's dead. We're still trying to make sure Walt would be proud of us. I do remember in my KFC days, it started dissipating a little bit because you've got the difference between corporate and franchisees, but it was a strong, those who had met and talked and shook hands with Colonel Sanders function in their business differently than those who did not. They knew there were certain things that the Colonel expected, and they were going to do that every time because that's what the Colonel wanted. And that stemmed from the purpose behind what Colonel Sanders wanted for his chicken. It was super high quality. It's not to say that it's not now, just saying it's different than it used to be. And those franchisees were like, no, we're keeping this, that we're not making that change because it dilutes what the Colonel wanted. I mentioned these big company examples because we can, on a small business level, learn from that. What about that makes it work, and how can I apply that in my own business? This is part of thinking strategically. So when I wanted to do this episode today, I wanted to talk about strategic planning. Traditionally, if you've been through a business program or whatever, traditionally, we know that a strategic plan is something that, is, if you're seeing this on the video, it's a lot of pages, 6,000 pages or whatever, that you put together for the investor or the bank. And that is the strategic plan. And that's what happens, is that it gets handed over, or it gets put in the binder on the shelf and then never used. And that is that's a lot of time and effort to be wasted. I don't like that. So when I started facilitating and doing this kind of strategy work and helping with plans, I was like, wait a second, we're working all of this to make a plan that you're not going to actually implement. I don't understand. So I changed the game a little bit, because understanding, I believe everybody should have a plan, but there are plans upon plans upon plans, and you can get lost in the plan. I always come back to the being strategic. So we talk about, so there's also, you can get it mixed up, a strategy and a plan. A strategy has been defined as a plan. And I'm like, okay, fine. However, you need to be able to think strategically to have a strategy. We need to back it up. What makes it an actual strategy? So let's go deeper into that part, because ultimately you're going to find, what I found is that to have a good, solid, workable, effective, results-driven strategic plan, you need to be able to think strategically. So we don't get like taught that a lot, like how to think strategically. We don't really get taught that. And there are some people who can just do that naturally, and I love them for it. Me, I don't, because I, as I mentioned in an episode I did in Unfiltered, which is another show of mine where it is exactly what it says. I'm a little extra unfiltered. I give you my 2 cents, an extended version on that and about different things. And so I did a recent episode about self-sabotaging and overthinking. Now, ideally, you want somebody when you're strategizing to be able to, open the gates and let that go. Like, you need to be able to think about all the things everywhere. And then you just put all that stuff, get it out of your head into a workable format. Like, this is why I have, I don't know, 4 whiteboards around here. I have a lot of whiteboards. And I just got this really cool tool called a Rocket Book because I like to write, and I'm not ready to pay for a Remarkable yet. So don't. I wanted to try to see if I would even use, like, let me see if I can use this and put it in digital form, like the tool. We'll talk about the tool later, but it's really cool because I'm like, oh, I now have a portable whiteboard. That's what it feels like. I don't know why I'm obsessed about whiteboards, but it does get the thoughts in my head out in front of me. And that's one of the biggest reasons I love it, because I'm sitting here, at my desk, and I'm on the wall in front of me on that side of the room is the whiteboard that's got all these big notes that I need to remember for today. But I've charted some other things out and all that kind of stuff. Get some good tools whenever you're starting to think and get it out of your head. That's the bottom line of that. Get you some tools. Whiteboard, big paper. I use scrap paper and tape sometimes, and that's all over my living room. You should have seen that. It was literally everywhere, you guys. I have an open floor plan, so kitchen to living room is open, and I had scrap paper taped all over the place because I categorized my thoughts, and I would put it all over the room, and then I would start to, group things together and start to funnel it down into a system. That's more tactical. I'll circle back around to that. Thinking strategically. You need a way to get things out of your head, but you want to allow yourself to think about all of the things. So the first rule of this is put yourself into a fun environment. When I say fun, whatever fun looks like to you. Nature therapy is always good. Get into an environment where literally you don't have a roof to deal with. Take the roof off, drop the walls down, go to an open space that actually feeds into you thinking without barriers. Don't know the magic behind it. It just is. So when you're able to think bigger and just allow yourself to think of all of the great things that you want to do, big ideas, right? Let's start with big idea things. Because the next step that you want to do is going to be a little harder, because then we have to really start defining. We have to start defining some things. Excuse me. We have to start defining some things. Oh, and the first thing you got to define is yourself. And this is really, there's 2 majorly hard steps that I, as a business coach and strategist, will walk people through. This is the hardest part. It comes first. Know yourself. And when I say know yourself, that means if you are the business leader, you pretty much are the business. We need to know you and how that translates into the business, and how separate is the business from you as its own personality. So brand personality, brand identity. Because if you and the brand are disconnected, it ain't gonna work for very long. People won't be able to make that same, it has to be able to come from you. Back to the stories of Walt Disney and Colonel Sanders, it starts with you. So that's the first thing, is we need to know you. So we would walk through a little bit of self-awareness. We need to know how you show up in the world. and how you would want this brand, this new entity walking around to show up in the world. Think Wendy's or even Taco Bell, like how they function on Twitter. It's as if they were their own person. Like that's how Wendy's works. So think about your own business brand, and does it have a separate identity from you? If the separation is too far disconnected, it's going to cause friction between you and your own business. That is another thing that happens. So diving deep into the definition of you is going to be the first step. The things that I like to go through as a quick thing is, do a personality assessment. I love those things, but it's very telling. How you're going to communicate based on your personality matters, because I need to know how you want to communicate in the world naturally without having to overthink it. Ideally, when we're talking about strategic thinking, we're going to think everything through before you do. That is my baseline definition of strategy. Think it through before you do. When we think this through, it's because ultimately I want to make sure that if I'm planning something, it's not going to cause friction in my day-to-day or my life, because then I won't want to do it. And then I'm not going to do it. And then it gets set aside and it causes me stress. And that's not good for anything because my body can't handle it. That's its own issue. However, I know if I'm putting something stressful in my plan, that's not a good plan. So we got to back it up. Like, how do I want to communicate? How do I want it? Because that right there is going to help formulate your content and messaging in your marketing. There's a reason why I do the things I do on the front end. So this creates your foundation. So know you. We're going to do personality assessments, but I also need to know your core values and what you believe about them. So most of my small business owners have within their top 3 values, this is played out 95% of the time, family is one of their top 3 values. And so what happens is when that plays out on a day-to-day and you're not thinking about it, you treat everybody like family. You expect everybody to behave like family. You expect a little more from your people because you treat them like family. You welcome everybody in because you treat them like family. There's a lot of goods and bads there. Family-owned business. I love family-owned business. I'm an only child. I come into a family-owned business and I'm like, why do you all be so crazy? Like, why do you do this as sisters? Why is this a brother thing? Like, I don't understand. Oh, the husband and wife dynamic. Got it. See? So there's a lot that happens in family-owned business. Get that stuff defined, because then you'll find, especially if you are in a family-owned business and you do just these 2 things, it brings up a lot of aha moments. Oh, that's why you do that. That makes more sense. Because now we're starting to create also a common language around what's important within the business, creating this foundation. So we're still in knowing you. Do the personality assessment, the core values, belief sets around the values, and then the ultimate hard part. Like this is the one piece that every person I know has struggled with it, is what do you really want to make in the world? Like, not the thing that you want to make. What's the impact you want to make in the world? What do you really want to accomplish? That's been the hardest thing to define, because the answer, if you're a repeat listener here about success, the answer is not make more money. It's about the impact that you have in the world. Now, if you can define that on the front end, oh, you are like 100 steps forward on this whole assignment. If you don't have it defined, we keep moving forward. So, and here's why I say that, because if you don't have a vision, is it detriment to making a plan? No, but you want to pay attention. You need to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. and how what you're paying attention to affects you. Now, what am I meaning by that? When you're watching the news 24/7, pay attention to how that affects your mood in a day. The other thing is not just your mood, but the intake of that information from mainstream media will affect your belief system. So now, are you being persuaded to think a certain way that is not helpful for you and your business, or are you using it for entertainment and fodder and it's just stupid stuff that's going in your head? I don't watch the news on purpose because ultimately it's not there, it's not presented to you to make you feel good about the world. It's there, the emotional piece that happens from it, because we're all emotional creatures. The emotional piece that happens is it creates a lot of hopelessness. Do you really need that in your business? The short answer is no. If you're living in this state of the world is just in chaos 24/7, can you really see something, a good impact happening in the world? It's hard. This is why I say pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Shut the noise out, listen to your spirit, and say, this is what I want to be in the world. Knowing yourself and what you really want is honestly the hardest assignment ever. This is why people like me have businesses that we do. We do coaching, we do strategy. This is why we are here, is to help you through that journey. We've been there ourselves. We can guide you through it. Okay. Because part of what kind of impact do you want to have in the world means you're impacting somebody. So the next stage, so we've gone through, get your environment set so you can think big, have all the big ideas. Don't make a plan yet. The second step of this is know yourself, right? So knowing thyself, all of those things. Now we need to get to know, who do we want to have an impact on? Who is our target audience as the pool of people? And not only the target audience, but who is that best buyer? One, like pick one out of the target audience. Because that one, you should have them defined as well as you know your best friend. That's as simple as I can make it. You want to know as much as you can possibly know about that person, because then you'll know what they really want. They are also emotional creatures. They are going to buy based on emotion. They will back it up with logic and reason every single time. We know from sales training, sales processes, that ideally to get somebody to buy something is that you find their problem that you can solve. What is their pain point? Well, that means you know what is wrong with your best friend. You know how to help them solve their problems. This is why you need to know that person that well. What drives them? Everybody wants their pain to be removed. We all do. But do we need somebody to come in and tell us we even have pain? This is where a lot of sales approaches don't work with somebody like me specifically, because of my belief set and my personality. Just don't even, I can think you can get away with any of that shit with me. I don't care. And I will go around and my back could still be hurting. I'm going to do it when I damn well feel like it. You can't tell me what to do. So I might be a little on the extra stubborn side, but if you're trying to sell something to me, you damn well better know that on the front end. I don't give a shit about your aggressive approach. And I will tell you, you might want to back this up, especially if you're talking to a business owner. We don't work on your timeline. I'm ranting now, but just to give you an idea, stop it. The whole point is to know that best buyer as if they were your best friend. You know what is in the refrigerator, and you know how organized that thing is. Some people just throw shit in there, and some people, I've got like half of my refrigerator is organized and half is not. I don't know. My one of my besties would say it's because I'm a cusp of a Leo and Virgo. All kinds of dramatic and OCD. Good luck to whoever lives in my space with me in the future, if that even happens. I don't know anybody can take it. Anyway, know them as if that best buyer was your best friend. Their belief system, their core values, how they communicate. Because here's the other thing about just personality and communication. If you are like me, very direct and like very much a lion personality, but your best buyer is more like a golden retriever. If you come in growling and roaring, what is that golden retriever going to do? It's going to cower in the corner. They are not going to. That's not what you want. So you have to know how they receive communication, not just what channels. Okay. I'm not talking just, is it Twitter or Instagram or Facebook? It's not even just about that yet. That's part of later. How they receive communication is based on their personality and their core values, their belief set, how they receive it. When you know that, you can cut through the clutter of any channel a whole lot faster, because what you really want to get to is what resonates with them. Okay. So now let's back this up a second. Developing a strategy means being strategic, thinking strategically. You got to get into an environment that's fun for you. Take the walls down, the roof off, get into a fun environment. You could probably guess where my fun environment is by now. I love going there because all bets are off. Like, the amount of imagination at Disney is through, like, they have a blue sky session. Like, they literally go outside, blue sky, and sky's the limit. Like, nothing, right? So anyway, get into a fun environment so you can think bigger. Think fun. Think all of the great things that can be done, but don't make a plan for them yet. Just think of all the ideas. Second, know yourself very deeply. Like, self-awareness can hurt. You got to come to some hard truths on some things, but you really need to get a lot of it defined. And then second, know them. Know your best buyer out of the target audience, because you still want to, you're addressing the target audience, but you're really talking to the one. Once you have this foundation in place, now we can start looking at, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are the ideas that now we can start kind of prioritizing things? What do we really want to make happen in the world? We know the impact we want to have. How do we want to do that? What sort of, widgets or services or just anything, like, what do we want to put out there? And then how do we make this all match up? Once you start getting there, then the plan starts to formulate. You can go on Google and there are shit tons of articles about telling you what to put in a plan. Your executive summary, and you got a marketing piece, you got your financials and operations and people. And so you would have plans within plans, because ultimately what you want to do is each of those sections does have a plan of attack, so to speak. You would have a strategy. You would be thinking strategically about each of those sections separately, but understanding how they connect to each other within your business. It's kind of, I have a business wheel that I do. It's very similar to a life wheel, but I use a business wheel that incorporates operations, sales, finances, and people. So that way I, checking my processes, and are my people okay? Do I have the right people in the right seats? And, all the questions I need to ask myself to be able to think strategically and assess the situation. Once you start getting to that point of, like, the impact you want to have, figure out, okay, what do I want to put out in the world? Services, products, this is what I want to do. And now you're off and running. Now, because you've done the work to be able to think strategically, now picking the best channels for you to market in is going to come a whole lot easier. Making those decisions come easier when your foundation's in place. So it's more about thinking strategically than it is making the plan. Because if you will take the time to think strategically and start instilling that method in your own decision making, shit goes a lot faster and it goes better. You don't waste near as much time. You don't waste near as much money. I mean, I run a tight ship around here. We are very frugal. And a lot of that's come from 2020. I've not hit that whole extra level of super profit yet coming out of 2020, but I have expanded my business also. So I've expanded, just leave it at that. I've expanded the business. So the other thing that I've also done is starting to simplify my processes. I can't get to these points if I'm not thinking strategically. I can't make a change on purpose if I'm not thinking strategically. I don't like shit to just happen to me and I don't know what to do with it. Thus, being able to think strategically. Once you get to developing the plan, some key things, you need to set your priorities. So when we talk about all your big ideas and the things you want to do, ask yourself, what does it take to get there? And then you'll start to see kind of a map start to formulate in your head. You can see those points along the way that you need to hit. Like, to be an international speaker, I need to be on more stages to be able to get me to that point. Well, to be on more stages, I need to be an author. I need to be, this show is one of the things that helps. And so I need to have these things in place. Okay, now that I have the priorities in place, I take a priority and I say, okay, what do I want to accomplish with this priority? So now I can start funneling this stuff down into something to really concentrate on. And then I take the time. Once a year, I set a lot of this stuff in place. I actually do it twice a year. So you guys kind of know my timeline. This is why I'm very just staunch about my birthday's in August. So it works out to be a great time. January 1 is off limits. I either do it on that day or I'm working up to that. But so far I've been on my own. That's not going to happen this year. We're going to start a little earlier. But January 1's where I solidify everything. Like, I've double checked myself. I'm like, that's a big deal. And then August, my birthday's in August. So I take that week, and that's whenever I'm getting really prepared for the following year. I'm evaluating everything that's happened so far. What do I need to finish out this year and how to start the next year? And then that's what I say, January 1, I'm reevaluating that, and I'm doing the same thing for the upcoming year. So I have twice a year where I dive deep into this process, but then I take myself once a month because I need to prepare for that specific month. What am I doing in that month? Well, that comes from those priorities and the objectives around each of those priorities. Because if thinking strategically, what comes first? If I did this piece right here, and let me hold some up. If I did this piece right here, I know I can get to this other thing over here a whole lot faster. Like doing this, XYZ, doing this, doing TY ink. That's what's on this highlighter. Doing ink gets me to fuzzball way faster than doing blue marker. So why not focus on orange highlighter to get me to yellow fuzzball? That's priority. Then I take the priority and I'm like, okay, so objectives. I need my top 3 objectives. I'm going to concentrate on 3 objectives. Great. Out of 3 objectives, I set one goal for those 3 objectives each month. Okay, so let me say it again so you can kind of see the chart in your head. Big ideas, I pick the ones that are a priority for the overall what I want to accomplish in the world. Out of that, priorities, set the priorities. What needs to come first? And then I pick a priority to focus on. I set objectives up to 3. I pick an objective. I set one goal per month. And now that I have a goal per month, I look at that goal and I'm like, okay, what are all of the things? What are the key activities I need to be doing on a daily basis or weekly, whichever, fits that particular goal, that I need to be incorporating so that I can hit that goal and ideally exceed that goal. So now that I have everything, like I'm taking it from a super deep level, I've created the root system so that my vineyard will grow, is kind of the analogy here. To get to a deep root system for grapes, it takes time and effort and patience and due diligence and all of this stuff. Like you really have to get in there and deeper for it for you to see the fruits of your labor. And the fruits of the labor become, now we get to actually work the plan. This is the objectives and setting the goals and what needs to happen where. And we're not talking about just marketing here. We're talking about all of the things. So this is why I also use my tool of a business wheel, is because now it's visually cutting my business into 4 areas. Out of that area, I have 2 segments that helps me concentrate in those pieces. I pick an objective for each segment, set a goal, off we go. This is what I do. So knowing that, back to the strategic plan, it's a big ass plan like that is very daunting. But this is why I do it the way that I do it, so that when I put the work and effort into a big ass plan like that, first of all, I know that it's strategic. I know it's going to feel good. I know it's something that I am going to want to work. Because it takes work to build a business. I don't care who ever come up with the idea of saying you can be a millionaire in 90 days without telling you how much money you need to pay on the front end for all that advertising, or all kinds of other things you may have to do to be a millionaire in 90 days. Anyway, that wasn't nice. Anyway, so it takes a lot of work and effort to build a solid business, a lot of work and effort. The other benefit of being strategic with your planning is that you as a business owner, it will give you a centering point. It also, quite frankly, it just helps you get your head out of your ass so that you can come back. Like when chaos happens and you've got a lot of fires to put out, it allows you to figure out, okay, where did I leave off on this? You can come back to center and start again. You have less of a complete halt of momentum. Like you can still have things in motion. All you have to do is like slow things down, but then you can rev it up again. It's kind of like a pit stop at NASCAR. You're in, you change the tires, oil up, back out. That's it. When you have a strategy in place, when you've thought it through before you do. For those that are out there who don't have a solid plan in place, you probably are experiencing, if it ain't one damn thing, it's another. I'm always putting out fires. There's always chaos, and I don't know what I'm doing in a day. That could be it. Now, if you thrive on that, kudos to you. I don't. I have moments where I'm okay with it. Like give me something where it forces me to be calm. I immediately go into strategic thinking whenever there's chaos, because I'm like, okay, what do we got going on here for other people? Now, let me clarify that, because when I get in my own chaos, sometimes I need a moment on the swing. Like I just need to go outside so that I can like let it out of my system. But then I typically come back to a whiteboard and say, all right, what are we working with here? And that's what I had to do yesterday. So again, part of the reason I'm having this conversation is because I want more people to be able to think strategically, and there is a way to do it. It doesn't come naturally for everybody, but there's a way to do it. I want to encourage you to do that. If you have trouble doing that, connect with me. I'm sure I can help. If you don't want my help, that's fine. I have other people who I can absolutely connect you to. But if you are at that place of, yeah, I think I really do want to get my shit together here, I'd love to have this solid plan where I feel good about the impact I'm making in the world. And I know I can because there's a plan for it. That's what a good strategic plan will do for you. All right. That's my big spiel for today. I thank you so much for listening to this episode of Small Business Success Talk. I have been your host, your guide, your coach on this episode, all about strategy versus just planning. I feel like I've missed something along the way. I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh, wait, hang on. I did. So no, we're not done. Hang on. Wait, there's more. I said I was going to circle back around to tools. So let me just say, let me find it here. This little rocket book, man, it is awesome. So back to having some tools when you're thinking strategic. I am a big note taker as well. So when I have ideas, I typically have 50 different notebooks laying around because I've categorized my notebooks too. You guys might think I'm crazy, but I'd have a notebook for one thing, and I've got a yellow pad for, travel notes, and every pad looks different. So I know what subject I'm talking about within all of those notes. And then of course there's Post-it notes and index cards and scrap paper, and all of that stuff really just needed to be simplified because now the physical clutter is getting on my nerves. So thinking strategically, I'm like, I still need to write it down. I cannot, it's not that I can't go straight to digital. It's just not the same. And I don't retain it. I don't feel like I actually said anything. And then I don't file it where I can find it. That's a whole other subject. I know myself well enough to know I'm a little scattered on the details every once in a while. Some things I definitely have my shit together, which is awesome. But when it comes to my own, I just create so much so fast. And I suck at filing. I mean, the bottom line is I know I suck at filing, but I have boxes of like categorized things all over the place. They're just not super organized past that. Like they're at least contained. The information is contained. So this rocket book, I would highly recommend if you guys are the same like me, or there's another product out there called Remarkable. A friend of mine, Jonathan, he uses a Remarkable, and it is pretty remarkable. It's all digital, so it works. It functions like a tablet. So it has the one screen, and you're doing everything on the one screen. And I think you can choose colors. Like that's a big deal for me too, because I also can color code my thoughts into these things. So the rocket book concept is you have these pages. First thing is you have these pages, and you can get some that are graph paper style. That's a little bit more expensive, not that much more, but I got one on sale and it wasn't the graph paper style, so I'm a little bummed. However, it still works just fine. These pages, you can erase everything on these pages. And when I say erase, I'm taking a little spritz of water and a towel, and I wipe it off. Take a daggone whiteboard. I know, it's amazeballs. So I have some notes. So yesterday during a couple of my meetings, I had notes for one person at the top, notes that came about on the bottom. All I have to do is with my phone, I have an app and it scans what's on this rocket book into a PDF. And not only that, it will actually transcribe my words on here into type. So then I'll have to just copy and paste it into something, or my VA is going to when I get a VA. So it will transcribe words. If it can read my writing, that's part of it too, but it'll transcribe the words. I mean, think about having to retype all of this, but now I don't have to. But it'll save the PDF exactly where I want it to go. I tell it to go wherever I have it set up for it. So there's little symbols, and I have all these choices of where I want to send it when I'm done with this tool. So highly recommend this thing. I got it on sale. It was an Amazon on sale, like for $20. But I also got the special friction pens. These are cool too. They're erasable gel. Oh, anybody else who's obsessed with office supplies like me, it's just a thing. So get yourself some tools. Whiteboards are awesome. Big paper is awesome. Those things to be able to get your ideas out. The other thing about tools is when you are ready to start instilling your plan, getting it down to day-to-day kind of stuff. If you are still also like me and you like to be able to write shit down, you would translate your plan into a planner. Now, what I'm showing you on the screen is a planner that I've designed. I'll have it out for sale again September, I think. But in the beginning of this, it walks you through writing out, defining your strategy. And so even a life wheel, look at all the words. I've done this now for about 4 years. I love this process. I work this process a lot with my clients anyway. It's worked really well for me. And I've gotten some great feedback on this planner, but it has the months in it. But I don't like to have to deal with something every single day. I know you're supposed to write it down every day, but I can't. So I've done a weekly format where I have daily activities here. But I also, according to the plan, like every month, it walks me through ahead of time what I should be asking myself every month. Get a good tool that when you're doing your monthly check-ins, quarterly check-ins, you already have your scorecards ready to go. What reports do you need? How are you going to evaluate whether your plan is working or not? Find those tools that work best for you. So I love my planner, but it doesn't stop there. Then I take and make sure that I use my digital calendar for time chunking. So those daily activities actually go to my Google Calendar and I time chunk. And when I time chunk, I color code. So I'll know, do I have meetings? Those are in one color. Do my working client work? That's obviously green for money. If I'm working on networking, that's a different color. If I'm, certain things. And then if I'm doing project work, I have a specific color for project work. So I know my day is accounted for and what I need to do in each of those days, because that helps me focus on, I can then also look back each week and do an evaluation as I'm prepping for the next week. How much time did I spend on things that took me away from my direction? And how much time did I spend on things that moved me forward in that direction? So I work all the tools, everything from as big as I can get in front of my face, whiteboards, big paper, scrap paper all over the walls, whatever, get it out of my head, down to the Rocketbook, which can go with me and it's replaceable and I can scan it and put it in a folder, file it where it needs to go and where it's usable for the entire team, not just me. And then into the planner so that I'm actually assigning out what work needs to be done, what month, what week, what day, and then daily activities that support all of that. And then put it into the digital. If I start digital, I don't care. I don't have any emotional attachment to that. So this may be what sounds like a long drawn out process. You might be able to just go straight to digital, and good for you. I just am not. I'm a Gen X traditionalist when it comes to, I like to write things down. That's my process there. And I love those tools. I just love the tools. Anything that I can color code with, I can write it out as big as I want and then translate that to digital so that it stays in. And now I'm wasting a lot less paper with a Rocketbook. I do love that. Better for the whole environment. So the tools. Then I had one last point. I'm going to circle back a little bit to knowing your best buyer and yourself. So as a recap, your strategy, being able to think strategically, is getting into different environments that help you have a little bit more fun. When you have more fun, your energy is different. You do think different. It just is like magic. It works that way. So when you're thinking different, you have your big ideas. Then move into knowing yourself. We talked about defining that, and knowing your target audience down to your best buyer as if they were your best friend. The thing about that too is once you start getting into the tactical pieces of your plan, you want to figure out what does work for them, the things that they would how do you really solve their problems, and pick those things slowly, one at a time. Don't try to do 50 things at once. Don't be like me. I already know that doesn't work. This is why most of my stuff is not out in the world yet, because I'm focused. I'm trying my best to focus on one thing at a time so that I can do that one thing with excellence plus 1%. Now, the concept behind the plus 1%, because we talked about strategy, we talked about the strategic plan, we talked about definition, we talked about a whole lot of stuff in this episode, which I'm hoping that you got a lot of value out of this. So hope you took notes if you did not go back and take some notes. All of this boils down to you are wanting to build a business and be successful at it. That means your target audience, your best buyer, it wants to use you to solve their problems or make their life better. They want you to help make their life better in the area in which you're specializing. Great. But if you throw it at them like a fire hose to the face, they're not ready for that. I warn people, if they're going to be in an intensive program with me, it's going to feel like that, but we're going to do it a step at a time. So they can prep themselves. When ultimately we're building this business, we want to get to that point as fast as we can where somebody says, well, how did you build your business? Word of mouth. Every small business person, that's their go-to. And I think about that. I'm like, how do you even get there? It takes time and effort and good strategy. Good strategic thinking will get you there faster. Word of mouth does not happen overnight. You have to show up. How are you showing up? Are you also able to actually solve their problems? And does it meet their expectations? And to meet their expectations, you want to exceed it. Like you want to go above and beyond at least to 1%. So whatever tactics that you're choosing, make sure you simplify them. This is why I love my funneling down system. Priority to objective, to one goal for each objective, and just work on the activities that support that goal and do that with excellence, because your person's going to feel it and they're going to start telling people. And that's what you want in a good way. You don't want them to say it in a bad way, and pay attention to those too. So there's a whole lot that goes into all of this. I'm sorry if the last 5 minutes or so have been kind of rambling, but it was still good stuff. Tools, and remember your tactics, keep it simple, do it with excellence. It's going to matter, because then you want to not only at the excellence, add the 1%, it starts to create raving fans. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. It'll help explain a lot of things about that. So back to thank you so much for your time today on this episode of Small Business Success Talk. As a reminder, my name is Christy Smallwood. Thank you so much for letting me be your guide today. If you couldn't tell, strategy is one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm weird like that. Most people are like, oh my God, I got to do a strategic plan. There's just so much. I'm like, yeah, it is. Let's do it. That's me. You're welcome. Have a great day, everybody. And I'll catch you again on the next episode of Small Business Success Talk.